So, Julie, it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too.
We've known each other for about 30 years, we were just saying, and you've been meditating all this time. And
Yes.
we first meditated, I think, in California at a retreat.
Three Rivers.
Three Rivers, that's right, a long time ago. And we've met regularly at retreats in California. And recently, you lost Don about 3 years ago, and your companion of how many years? Your husband for how many years?
He died 3 years ago in February.
How long had you been married?
60 years.
Oh my goodness! So a lot of grieving, but you're a strong person, and you're a very committed meditator. And now you're living in near Portland in Oregon, in a residential community. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what that's like. I think it's quite a pleasant place for you, with close to nature and so on. But what I wanted to ask you was to share from your experience what you would find helpful to suggest to other people at this stage of life. I won't ask you how old you are, because that would be not very polite.
I'm 87 in 2 months.
Okay, well, we may not believe it, but we'll take it. We'll take your word for it. But I'm going to ask you to say something that could be helpful for people in your age range who are maybe going through some difficulties living in care homes or residential communities, and finding it difficult, or who don't have the benefit, for example, of a spiritual path well established in your life that you've had. So maybe could you say a word first of all about how meditation is part of your life, and what kind of routine you have, and why it's so important to you?
Oh my goodness me, because it goes back so far. I think it is it has been incredibly important to me in my life. And I think one of the wonderful things that should be helpful to anybody, and when I had groups for so many years, that I pointed out, is that meditation, you can start meditating at any age. As you know, you've taught groups for children. And I strongly believe that when I had my groups, I was never concerned if people dropped out. Because I always thought, if they have learned to meditate and they've meditated for any period of time, it's something they've got. They have a path to God, a personal link that they can touch into at any point during their life, whether it's illness, grieving, or new experiences like moving from your own home. We had a large house in Sacramento, and I not only lost Donald, I moved from the state, I moved where I had lived, I moved away from my children, and everything all at once. And a lot of that is very, very hard to deal with. But if you are able to build for yourself a strong spiritual base, then it is something that you can return to on a daily basis to give you support.
Thank you.
And when I moved in here, there were very few people that I had a lot in common with. I'm a contemplative by nature, and there's something about retirement homes and the elderly that the staff feels compelled to keep you entertained at every possible moment. So I mean, I'm not sure whether they've got 80 groups here or something or another, but they also have a system where they have a welcoming thing where you have dinner with people all the time, so that you are meeting new people. Well, for me, was totally overwhelming. I mean, I just felt like I wanted to get into bed, pull the clothes over my head and say, go away, or just pack a bag and leave or something, you know. And I think if you've got a strong spiritual base, which meditation certainly gives you, then it's something quiet, that is personal, and a link with God, just as a dumping ground, as well as something with which you are being enriched. I have personally felt that
you as a very introverted person, but you
no,
are. I know you're
like,
contemplative, but and I think you started a meditation group in the residential home that you're living in now, didn't you?
no.
Oh, you haven't started.
I did. No, I did it. I did it within you taught me to meditate in 1990, and I started in 95 because I got to Sacramento. We moved in a house in Sacramento, and there was no group there. And I tried where I lived before, and there was no group there. And I thought I have to start a group.
Yeah.
And I was very brave about it. I came out with a flyer, and I spoke at all the masses. I was terrified. And I spoke at all the masses, and I ended up having to start right from the beginning with hardly any background myself, with 2 groups, because I found that there were those in the morning. I had some elderly people. I had people who were retired, people who were raising children, who would get a sitter or a grandma to look after the children and so forth. And then I had an evening group at 7, the same day. I did it the same day. I did the one on Mondays at 10:30, and I did one in the evening at 7:30 for people who worked. And it was a tremendous learning experience.
And I think starting a group like that gives you, the person who starts the group, a lot of boost and a lot of enrichment as well. Have you been able to do that where you are now and where you're living now?
They have a centering prayer group.
Yes. And
so I go along with that. Okay. And one of the things that I used very and thoroughly enjoyed was the Paul Harris's wonderful book, Silence and Stillness for Every Season. And so with my groups at first, I used
daily readings of John May.
Daily readings, right. And I thoroughly recommend, whether people are part of a group or not, to buy that book. It was never I think in England it was £17 or something. I don't remember how much it was here. And I ended up buying a bunch of them on one of my trips to England and lugging them home and having, people buy them from me, because if they couldn't come, this was something that they started their own meditation at home with, and was their sort of support through. But I mean, the amazing things that you get when you start a group, especially if you've advertised it like that, is you get all kinds of different type of people. I had Buddhists there. I had a lady who self-hypnotized, who fell off her chair and was flat on the floor. Which I had no idea how I was going to deal with her. I had a lovely, lovely bipolar lady who either didn't say anything. She was very faithful. She came with me for years and years, and she didn't say anything at all for when she was in that period, a low period. And then when she was on her high period, she would just talk continuously. But she stopped talking when we meditated. And that was very touching to me. And it got to a point where her husband brought her in the end. And he would just go out and have coffee while she was there at the group. And she'd sit there silently and meditate with us. And it was huge.
Thank you. So a group can be open to everyone.
Everyone.
The important thing is that the teaching itself is clear, simple, and presented every week. But you could easily, anyone could easily start a group. You just take whoever comes, and you have the talk at the beginning, or do a reading from the daily readings book, for example. Meditate for 20 minutes or 25 minutes, and then have a short time for discussion. You said,
right. That's exactly the way. In fact, you have a book that says how to start a group. And
Yeah.
that was the things that I bought. That was one of the things that I bought, and it told me exactly how to do it. It didn't tell me how to deal with it if I had Buddhists, which I had come, and they were not offended by any of the readings. It was just went so smoothly. It was lovely.
Inclusive, really. It's focused, but it's inclusive. You said an interesting thing, that you can start to meditate at any age. I'm thinking of people who might be watching, listening to you now, and thinking, well, I'm about the same age. I'm also living in a retirement home, but it's a bit too late for me to start meditating. What would you say?
No, it isn't. I have a lady who's on the other side of, whose apartment is on the other side of the hallway to me, who's 93. And she asked me about something I've forgotten, or in a group I said, they were talking about being quiet, during the coronavirus thing. And so I said, well, I meditate anyway. And so she said, how do you do that? And so I said, I'll tell you, and then we'll have a follow-up. But I gave her the bookmark with the instructions on the bookmark. That was just all I gave her. And I said, if you do exactly what's on there, and then if you need any help, I'm right across the hallway, I'm happy to do it. And she started doing that at 93. And then she now watches Daily Wisdom. And that is, she didn't buy the book, but she does the Daily Wisdom.
Maybe explain what Daily Wisdom is.
The Daily Wisdom. If you pull up the website and you get a whole bunch of choices, if you go pull up hit resources, click on resources, and then it drops down and it says Daily Wisdom, and you can click on the Daily Wisdom, and then it will give you the archives, which is great. So you can even watch a year ago's with Daily Wisdom and see how they are. And you can look at your wonderful pictures too, Father.
So Daily Wisdom is a daily email that
Yes.
you subscribe to, or as you say, you can go into the archives and look at it. It's composed of a photo that I've taken somewhere in the world, and also a short text, a short reflection text.
Yes.
So it's a kind of a daily boost or daily, hopefully, an inspiration.
Yes, and it to use a sporting thing, it keeps your eye on the ball.
That's right. Well, that's good to know. I'm glad. It's always nice to know that it's serving a useful purpose.
Actually, I feel with the elderly that it's incredibly actually important, because I have witnessed, because it has hospice here, and so forth, and I've sat with people who were dying, and meditation can be a very important part of the whole dying cycle, as I believe. I'm sure you've been with people too, and actually, Ning, and you've been with her, weren't you?
Yes.
That was her name.
Wonderful video. Patricia Ing, there's a wonderful video on YouTube called "From Panic to Peace," in which Patricia, who was only in her 50s at the time, had been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and I had this conversation with her and Peter, her husband, a few months maybe before she died, in which she spoke about the journey of the previous 19 months and how she had been helped through this by her meditation to move from panic to peace, and a very moving account of her journey into a place of great peace, where she could face the letting go of her family and letting go of life with really deep serenity and wisdom. So it is an excellent idea to watch that if you're facing any fears of mortality. I think that would really help you to deal with them. What's your own routine of meditation in your daily life now?
Oh, well, see, I'm in an unusual situation now. It's changed considerably since Don died, so I don't really know which part of that. It was more of a challenge, I think, when Don was alive, and there are a lot of course couples here. So I think if your retirement community, if you're there as a couple, quite frequently, as I'm sure you've been very aware, is one of the couple meditates and the other one doesn't necessarily meditate. And I think it's, Don was very, very thoughtful about this, about me going to retreats or getting books or whatever. And I think that it really helps if somebody is supportive. But if they're not, it's still a possible thing to do. But I think one of the most important things is having a place. There's a lovely song about holy ground, and that they play sometimes before the readings that they have here daily. And I think if you have an area in your house which is a prayer area, which I've had since 1990, I had it in all the houses that we had, so that to me, I was sort of in that mode when I sat down to meditate. And I have that here too. That was one of the first, I brought the same things here. And from time to time, children have given me things. I gave you a plug the last time I saw you about us getting an 8x10 of you, a nice picture of you. I have Father John's, which I used with my groups a lot of the time, so that the person that they were hearing about or listening to on a tape, that they would know that that was a person. It's just not an abstract voice, especially in these days when we're very visual.
So it's a good idea, you say, to meditate in the same place.
Absolutely.
Every day. It gives you a kind of regularity and sense of stability. Yeah. And then and
whatever your faith is, when you come into your place of worship, there is a feeling that you just change your whole attitude. And I think the same thing happens with meditation, that it helps to get you into that mode. I have used, because I live a very contemplative life now, I'm able to read the Daily Office and a whole bunch of things. I subscribe to Magnificat and I read that. So I've got a preparation before I get to my meditation, which for me happens to be a helpful thing to do. But I literally just say the prayers that are on that little bookmark that you taught right from the very beginning, the beginning and the end. I usually have a little candle, which I light, one of those little metal candle things, which I believe is illegal in a residential community, but too bad, so sad. I haven't set fire to the place yet. And I often have incense. In fact, that's going to be on my daughter's shopping list next time, because I've run out of my Nag Champa. But so any of these sort of little aids that you personally have. I also have, which I took to many of the retreats, a kneeling stool, one of the little padded stools which I used. And a couple of people in my groups had them. Most people sat on a hard chair. And a hard chair, of course, most people's houses have couches and things like that. But I think you need to be upright. I think you need to keep alert and not feel so relaxed. I mean, you need to be relaxed, but you don't want to fall off to sleep.
Right.
And I think that's usually part of your teaching too. And so I'm very conscious of those kinds of things too. And
do you meditate in the morning and in the evening?
Yes. Right. I used to. Before Don died, I would meditate often before I first got up, because I would go to mass, and I live in Sacramento. I live very close to the Jesuit school, so I went to the Jesuit mass, and of course the priest had to teach classes, so that the mass was early. So I would do that. And a lot of the time I would walk to mass. In fact, a couple of years after I'd left, one of the priests said, "Where's that lady that walked up the hill?" But anyway, so that was a good slot for me then. And I always meditated in the afternoon, usually between 3:30 and 4:30, because I wanted to do it before dinner, which you recommend. And I felt too with the I wanted to do it before I started the preparation for dinner. I didn't want to be thinking about dinner when I was meditating. So I thought, if I do it when my day, not in the evening, you get tired in the evening, or Don's had some football game on or some other dreadful thing that he watched. And so, you know, it's you're in a different atmosphere. So I would do it early so that I had it done before.
Early morning or early evening if possible, or you can, of course, be adaptable as well. So
Right.
what I hear you saying, I think a lot of people who, you know, maybe older people who are living alone, maybe in conditions aren't as pleasant as those that you're enjoying, because you have a lot of access to nature and to be able to walk outside, but some people wouldn't have that. But you would still, I think, be able to advise people to at least try to meditate, to start to meditate, and to see where this practice could take them, how it could help deal with that feeling of isolation or maybe depression or loneliness or fear that they might be feeling.
Absolutely. And I think, Father, that a lot of the residential homes, even if they have a small garden or something, do encourage people to walk. Now, I happen to walk for 45 minutes to an hour every day, even at this ancient age, but I've always done that. So that isn't new for me. But even I've noticed, you know, there's people with walkers and wheelchairs and so forth that are outside, and some of them will find us the shadiest place under a tree and just sit there for a while. So that a lot of this is available if you're looking for it, you know, to do it. And I think too, if it was a situation where there would be care people who they could say to, you know, I really need to go out. Is there some way that we can handle this?
Okay.
You know.
Good. So, Julie, what I'm going to suggest is that we might take a couple of minutes to end this conversation with meditation. What I can do is do a short introduction to the way you and I both meditate. And then I could invite you to say the opening prayer, which we use, but that's more optional, but many people in our community find it helpful. And then why don't we meditate for a few minutes together, and then invite people who are maybe watching this to join us. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So,
I have to find the opening prayer, or else I'll flub it. Why don't you do the opening prayer too?
All right, I can do the opening prayer. So the first thing, as you well know, which you began 30 years ago, is to take a moment to sit comfortably with your back straight, your feet on the ground, your hands on your lap or on your knees. Just get into a comfortable seated posture. Then relax your shoulders. Maybe give them a little bit of a shake, just relax. Relax the muscles of your face, your forehead. Close your eyes lightly. And then be aware of your breathing for a couple of breaths. This helps you to begin taking the attention off your thoughts. Because in meditation, we let go of our thoughts. We're not thinking about ourselves or our problems or the world or thinking about God, but we are being with ourselves, being who we are, and being with God. And that is why meditation is a way to peace. So let's just take a few moments to be aware of our breath as we breathe in the gift of life and allow that gift of life to fill us with hope and to bring us back to our own center, where we are always in the present moment. Then to go a little deeper, we take our word, our meditation word, our mantra, and we repeat this single word from the beginning to the end of the meditation. And when we get distracted, interrupted by our thoughts, we simply come back to our word. And the word that we recommend is the word Maranatha, an ancient Christian prayer that means "Come, Lord." in Aramaic, the language that Jesus spoke. So if you choose this word, you choose another word in your own tradition, if you have a different tradition. This is an ideal word. If you choose this word, Maranatha, say it as 4 syllables, Ma-ra-na-tha. Ma-ra-na-tha. As you say the word, listen to it. Give it your full attention. You don't have to visualize it or think about the meaning of it, but just listen to the word gently, faithfully, as you say it. And we can now enter into a short period of meditation with this short prayer. Heavenly Father, open our hearts to the silent presence of the Spirit of your Son. Lead us into that mysterious silence where your love is revealed to all who call. Maranatha, Ma-ra-na-tha. We could end with these words from the Gospel of John. Peace is my parting gift to you, my own peace, such as the world cannot give. Set your troubled hearts at rest and banish your fears. I've spoken these words to you so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. So thank you, Julie. I think that will be very helpful for people who are alone or in a residential community or facing this time of confinement and isolation, maybe without all the resources that you've built up over all these years. And thank you for sharing your own faith and experience of meditation, and for really showing that peace and joy that Jesus was talking about in that passage, showing that in your own words and in your own manner and the way you've spoken with us. So we'll let you go for your morning walk now, and, and thank you very much again. It's been really good to see you again, and we meditate together every day in the silence and whatever time zone or place we may be. And maybe just to remind people who are watching that there are many resources. You mentioned Daily Wisdom, for example, many other resources that if you go to the wccm.org website, you might find there some ways and means to help you develop or start your practice, or develop it, strengthen it, and to help support the journey. Meditation is a journey, and from beginning to end. So thank you, Julie, very much.